Hello, everyone. You are listening to Scenecraft. From opening shots to long takes and epilogues, we examine our favorite scenes from cinema here on the podcast. I'm Cody, here with my co-hosts,
Mark
and Connor.
You can find Scenecraft on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Scenecraft Podcast for the latest news on the show. Today we will be discussing the newly released Asteroid City, directed by Wes Anderson. We're also so excited to speak with the lead graphic designer on the film, Erica Dorn, for her pro take toward the end of the episode. But as usual, let's kick off with our brief What We've Been Watching segment, Quick Takes.
Speak quickly.
Quickly, thank you.
Quickly, come on. Hurry up, quicker.
Way quicker.
Okay, I'll say it fast.
All right, so what have you guys been watching recently?
Okay, I recently saw Reality, which was directed by Tina Satter, and it was released this year, 2023. The logline reads, on a Saturday afternoon in June 2017, Reality Winner, a 25-year-old, is confronted at her Georgia home by the FBI. A cryptic conversation begins, and Reality's life quickly begins to unravel. So let me start off by asking you guys, how familiar are you with this story?
A little bit.
Okay.
I mean, I heard about it happening, but I don't really know about it in much detail other than she was a whistleblower, right? Yeah.
Mhm. I don't know if this is really spoiling anything because this all happened, but it's based off a true story regarding a person whose name is Reality Winner. I could see that already adding confusion to anybody listening if they didn't know that was her name. But basically, she was a former American intelligence specialist who leaked government information about the Russian interference in the 2016 United States elections.
Mm.
So this movie takes that premise and brings it one step further in that the entirety of the dialogue is copied verbatim from an actual audio recording that was made during this confrontation with the FBI. And it's a pretty inspired decision that really sets it apart from a lot of other historic retellings or just a simple documentary. And it made the experience feel almost like an acting exercise more than an actual film.
Oh, okay.
So I'm a little torn on this one. Sydney Sweeney is really great here, as is the rest of the cast. And I think it quickly oscillates between being very intriguing, but incredibly tedious at times. And I think this could easily have been like a stage play or, like I said, like a documentary. So in that sense, I think it was interesting to see something different, but I'm not entirely sure there's a huge audience for this one. So sadly, I don't think I would recommend Reality for most people.
Okay.
All right. I went back to the 90s on this next one. I saw the movie Clockwatchers, which was directed by Jill Sprecher in 1997. And the logline reads, the relationship between four female temps working for the same credit company is threatened with the arrival of a new hire who lands a permanent position that one of the women was vying for. It's actually kind of funny reading that logline because I feel like the film is not as plot driven as that makes it sound like it is. This is actually really more about exploring the different relationships between the cast while also commenting on the somewhat dehumanizing and disposable nature of workers in the workplace. And this movie was actually released 2 years before Office Space, which I could see a lot of comparisons between the two. And I actually thought that this came out afterwards, but it actually predated it. And so it's a shame this didn't garner as much attention as that because the cast here is phenomenal. It stars Toni Collette in one of her breakthrough performances, Lisa Kudrow at the height of her Friends fame, and Parker Posey.
Wow.
And these three actors I truly admire, and it makes such good use of all of them. I think Parker Posey probably steals the show. She's incredible in it.
That sounds about right.
But this is so good. It really articulates a lot of the frustrations at corporate culture. So if you enjoyed Office Space and you want something that's a little less satirical, or if you subscribe to the anti-work subreddit, then this movie is made for you. I would recommend watching Clockwatchers. Connor, what have you seen recently?
So I feel like I've been watching a lot more TV series lately than movies, but One that my wife and I went back to watch, which we missed the first time around, was Mindhunter. And it was created by Joe Penhall, but I think you guys might know it because David Fincher was the EP on it, the showrunner and the most frequent director with 7 episodes. So it originally came out back in 2017. The second season came out in 2019, and it's officially done. I think Fincher came out earlier this year and said that it's over with and he's moving on to his next project. But
Yeah.
the logline for this one reads, in the late 1970s, 2 FBI agents broaden the realm of criminal science by investigating the psychology behind murder and end up getting too close to real-life monsters. So the more I watch of this, the more I like it. We're on the second season now, and I was a little unsure due to the dark subject matter, but I'll say this series deals more with the people chasing murderers versus focusing on the murders themselves, which I like. It follows FBI agents studying the motivations and behavior of serial killers, and they actually coined that phrase in the process in the late 1970s to early 1980s at Quantico, when the idea of a serial killer was a new and relatively unknown thing. So you get unsettling glimpses into these killers, sure, but the draw for me is the relationship between the 3 founding members of the behavioral science unit at the FBI and the difficult path they've forged to make it seen as a legitimate department. It's full of really moody, period-specific atmosphere, which you guys know Fincher specializes in.
Oh, yeah.
It's a slow burn, and outside of the main character, Holden, who's kind of a notoriously insufferable person and wrote the book on which the series is based, it's an insightful look into the early days of criminal psychology and the hope they had of applying this knowledge to solve active cases. And shout out to the character of Bill Tench. He's a really good character in the show. And I would definitely recommend checking out Mindhunter if you guys haven't seen it.
Yeah, I've seen some of it. It's a shame that it's getting cut off kind of before its time a little bit. I wish they would have continued.
Yeah, I found myself weirdly following the show even though I hadn't seen a single episode.
Yeah, right.
I felt really sad when I heard that it wasn't continuing, and I kind of backed and rallied behind all the fans that were upset about it, even though I hadn't seen a single episode.
Oh, well, you guys got to watch it. The other thing that I watched, which I know you guys have watched too, because we watched it together, is I Think You Should Leave with Tim Robinson.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
By Tim Robinson and Zach Kanan. And the 3rd season just came out in 2023 this year. The logline, which I've actually never read before, is this is a sketch show where Tim Robinson and his guests spend each segment driving someone to the point of needing or desperately wanting to leave.
Whoa.
Yeah, it feels weird to hear that.
Yeah, when you put it like that.
Yeah, I guess it's true. All right, so this is a favor to the hosts on this show, and we're actually planning at some point to dedicate an entire episode or more to specific skits from this amazing series. But I Think You Should Leave is back for a 3rd season, and we all recently binged these 6 glorious 15-minute episodes, and there's plenty of gold here. We love it so much. We actually all watched the first episode live together over streaming through a Plex watch party, just to experience it together for the first time. And I'd say it definitely delivered.
Mm-hmm.
So the only thing I'll say, and I know we agree on this, the second season was so good that it's a tough act to follow.
Right.
So I think my only criticism is that some of the weakest skits of the entire series are in this season, but they're also some of the best skits of the series.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bit split in that sense, where there's not as much of a middle area in this one. And I know we've already done a pretty thorough text thread about this, but I'd love to hear what were your guys' top 3 skits of the season?
After giving this some thought, I would say in no particular order.
Oh, okay.
It would be the driving crooner,
Yes.
the ABX heart monitor,
Mm-hmm.
and the drive-through.
Nice. Yeah, those are great. Mine are Driving Crooner.
Yes.
Love that one. Summer Loving with the zip line.
Mm-hmm.
And Eggman Game.
After hearing you say those out loud, I'm like, damn, I really should have included those. It was hard for me to not use dog hair as well. I really liked that one.
That's
too.
a great one.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you guys that Driving Crooner is probably the most memorable of the
Yes.
season for me. And then the way that he does that classic Tim Robinson kind of freak out voice during the doggy door sketch.
Yeah.
And then I also absolutely love the Pay It Forward drive-through
Yes.
sketch.
It's a
Just the way
classic.
he's firing off like 55 burgers, 55 shakes, 50. It's just like, it's so good. And just the concept itself is so clever. Like
Yes.
I had,
Oh my
you know,
God,
it's
yeah.
just- yeah.
But last thing I'll say, my wife and I have tickets to the Cubs game this weekend for I Think You Should Leave night on Saturday. And they're giving out Cubs-themed Dan Flash's shirts. And Tim Robinson will be there in person throwing out the first pitch. So very excited. Looking
Okay,
forward to
Connor,
that.
So jealous.
How is this even possible? Is it because his connections to the like Chicago comedy scene?
I think so. It's
Is-
through like Second City. I'll definitely send you guys some pictures.
Mhm.
Yeah.
What about you, Cody? What have you been watching lately?
So I've had a lot of theatrical experiences in the past month, which has been really nice, kind of kicking off the summer movie season. And the first one I saw was Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, which is the follow-up to its predecessor, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. This was directed by Joaquim Dos Santos, Kemp Powers, and Justin K. Thompson. This was released in theaters on June 2nd. The logline for the film reads, Brooklyn's full-time friendly neighborhood Spider-Man is catapulted across the multiverse where he encounters a team of spider people charged with protecting its very existence. So I think it's probably fair to say that the predecessor to this movie, the first Spider-Verse, is hailed as a massive critical and box office success. This sequel, Across the Spider-Verse, has officially surpassed that box office for the original, and many would argue it's somehow an even better film as well. I would definitely be counted among them, I think, because I loved this movie, and it may even be my favorite animated superhero film ever made. I think it
Nice.
barely edges out the original Spider-Verse film, as well as The Incredibles, probably, for me,
Ooh,
which
wow.
is really hard to beat.
Yeah.
Looking at the visual approach alone in this film, this expands a bit further even on the innovative style of the first film, which has been extensively mimicked over the past 4 or 5 years by other projects just because of how bold and incredible it was.
Mhm.
Its blend of different mediums, dimensions, colors, homages, it's awe-inspiring and groundbreaking. It definitely rewards that attention to detail. And just the general neon pop punk vibe is so distinct. And you just want to be in that world. You want to live in it with these characters. And more importantly, the movie is poignant. It really takes its time for emotional beats that are
Mhm.
genuinely impactful. It really nails that feeling of being a teenager,
Yeah.
but also it explores the challenges of parenthood and family. Connor, I know your screening was severely impacted by the audio mix issues on the film.
It was. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really too bad. I have heard that the DCP for the film has been updated,
Oh,
so
good.
now would actually be a great time to go catch it in theaters while you still can. So hopefully that's fixed. That large format experience in the theater really makes it that much better. So that's Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, and I would highly recommend it.
All right, boys. I know you guys have both seen this, but I have a surprise take. I did see
Oh.
this in theaters too. I know I was texting with you guys about whether I would see it
Oh.
or not. Yep.
Sneaky
And-
little guy here.
I have to say that this one really got me. I don't even
Oh,
understand
good.
how a movie like this was made.
Yeah.
It just pushes the boundaries of animation to this point where all these different elements that are seen on screen shouldn't be cohesive, but they are.
Mhm.
It makes no sense, but at the same time, it's just beautiful to look at. And I found the emotional core of this film to actually resonate more with me than the first one. So I actually would be on Cody's side and say that I enjoyed this movie more than the predecessor.
Yeah, somehow, which is so rare.
Mm-hmm.
Then next up, I saw the film Past Lives by Celine Song, released in theaters last week. And the logline for the film is two childhood friends reunite for one fateful week as they confront destiny, love, and the choices that make a life. So, as I was saying before, this has just been an exciting month at the theater because I've pretty much been loving everything coming out for the most part.
Mhm.
And Past Lives may top that list for me.
Oh,
Mm.
wow.
And it's even more impressive knowing that this is the debut feature for Celine Song. I knew nothing about this movie going in, only that it's A24, which really boosted my hopes and expectations a little bit. And I found this to be phenomenal. It has a really rare subtlety and simplicity that I found so refreshing. It's really only about the connection that two people share over the course of adolescence into adulthood. And that premise totally hinges on these characters. And I found their performances to be a complete success.
Mhm.
And it's so easy to see yourself and maybe some of your own emotional journeys in these people. And the understated way in which it's shot and directed really complements these actors. I think this is probably the most cliched thing I could possibly say right now, but I do think it's really the case. You can really feel the locations of the film as characters.
Hmm.
You're getting a lot of unseen beauty of New York City, the calmness of Montauk, and even a little bit of Seoul, South Korea. I'm just such a sucker for a sprawling, sentimental voyage like this that takes place over a lifetime. I think it just automatically builds in higher stakes. And the closest thing I can really compare this to would be something like Linklater's Before trilogy.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I
Uh-huh.
don't think we've ever talked about those really between the three of us, but yeah, with the added perspective of a young person's immigration experience it inserted into past lives, I think it really makes it a very special thing. This was such a great experience for me to watch, and I'd highly recommend checking out Past Lives while it's still in theaters.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I'm so glad
Wow,
you
that's
loved it,
super
man.
high praise. I really want to see this one.
Yeah, you should check it out, Mark. Let us know what you think. So I saw this too. Really enjoyed it. I will say I can't remember the last time I had people just like sobbing at the end of the
Yeah.
film, like like
Yeah.
loudly in our audience. It was just like quiet in the theater, except for a few people crying because the ending really hits pretty hard.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely one to check out. Well, thank you guys as always for your recommendations. And now let's move into our discussion about Wes Anderson's Asteroid City, starring Jason Schwartzman, Scarlett Johansson, and Tom Hanks, among many others. And seriously, there are too many stars to name here. And as with all of our scene selections, beware of spoilers ahead.
Chapter 1. I walked to school 18 miles each morning, milked the goats, plucked the chickens, played hooky, caught fireflies, went skinny dipping in the watering hole, said my prayers every night, and got whipped with a maple switch twice a week. That was life. In the meantime, somebody else's story. A man thinks up a number, divides it by 1,000,000,000,000, plugs it into the square root of the circumference of the Earth, multiplied by the speed of a splitting atom, and voila, progress. I'm not a scientist. You are. End of chapter 3.
The logline for the film reads: The itinerary of a junior stargazer convention in the fictional Asteroid City is spectacularly disrupted by world changing events. So let's first start out with our general thoughts on the film. Mark, what did you think?
Okay, guys, I don't think it's any secret to you that I loved Asteroid City. We were very fortunate to be able to attend a critic screening of this one, and I've been dying to talk about it ever since. So I think this is probably my favorite project of Wes Anderson in the past 10 years.
Mhm.
I
Wow.
think he has such a gift at unfolding films in this storybook like manner. He's got these gorgeous visuals with this meticulous use of color and these moments of visually pleasing symmetry and clever use of camera movements. And I think his dry, witty sense of humor is often really funny. And it's especially potent when it's paired with the stilted delivery of the actors. And I think to date, his strongest projects are the ones where all these elements work together in perfect harmony.
Hmm.
Because when they do, I feel like his films are truly transcendent with a level of distinctness unlike any other major director working today. And for the most part, I think Asteroid City hit the mark for me. I think this film packs a lot of really thought provoking explorations on life and death, as well as art and how we deal with things that are beyond our control.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's the sheer density of this film that doesn't necessarily demand, but heavily invites a rewatch. So I can't wait to see this one again.
No, I really like this too. Wes Anderson movies are such a special treat to watch. The art direction is like final boss level, along with the graphic design and just the entire production design. The attention to detail, the craft, the handmade nature, the whole thing. It's all just incredible, and everyone involved is next level talented. There's so much to take in that it can almost be kind of overwhelming, which is why I really appreciated that he chose to slow the pace down a bit with Asteroid City.
Yeah.
We get a slower, dreamier story set in the American Southwest, which was great to see him do the American Southwest
Mhm.
in a small fictional desert town, frozen in time, and the world is sort of passing it by. For me, it felt like Anderson settled back into comfortable territory here after trying a new anthology approach with The French Dispatch, which I found hard to keep up with. That one felt like it was more fun for him to make than it was for us to watch, if
Mm.
I'll be honest. But the fun is definitely back in this one, and he kept some of the experimentation, which is neat to see. But I think his stories have way more impact for me when he goes deeper into these amazing worlds that he builds. So I was glad to see more of a linear story with this one, and it felt like we could just settle in and live with these characters for a while.
Yeah.
And it feels a little weird to say after all of that, but I think this probably sits somewhere in the back half of Wes Anderson's work for me,
Hmm.
even though I really enjoyed it and I thought it was a great, easy, comforting summer watch.
So Connor, that's so funny you bring up a couple of these points because I feel like I am thinking about this the same exact way that you are.
Huh.
Um, yeah, so I think we could all probably call ourselves avid Wes Anderson fans. I think we've all
Yeah.
seen his whole filmography.
Mhm.
The Grand Budapest Hotel is one of my personal favorite films of all time.
Oh, yeah.
Mm.
Anderson is just one of those filmmakers where even when he releases a movie that isn't what you were hoping for, it's still compelling in some way and visually spectacular and
Yeah.
brings something different to the landscape of cinema
Mhm.
overall. And honestly, at his best, his movies are kind of a miracle, I think. I have no idea how he and his crew pull it off every time. I also loved Asteroid City with very few reservations, and I've been thinking about it a lot over the past few weeks, which, like you, Connor, is why it is so weird to say that it sits somewhere in the middle of Anderson's body of work for me. I guess that just goes to show that he has such an unusual amount of celebrated films, and it basically take a miracle to top himself.
Hmm.
In recent
Yeah.
years, it seems like he's been wanting to experiment more and more with the narrative form. To some degree, Asteroid City feels like a great middle ground between those two experiments, kind of like you were saying, Connor. And it's more of a traditional structure, which I enjoyed.
Hmm.
It was really exciting to see him tackle the American West, like you guys have mentioned. It feels more humble and sincere, maybe compared to a setting like Ennui in The French Dispatch, which felt a lot more dense and esoteric.
Hmm.
So that was a really nice, slower change of pace. And even though it's not as emotionally resonant for me as something like Grand Budapest, Asteroid City tackled themes that I think are particularly evocative post pandemic.
Hmm.
This small desert town is sort of this dreamy way station that becomes a pause from real life and lets the characters reconnect with others and their own feelings. And it's all within the framing device of this play to allow for those heightened concepts. The movie takes on so much and it gives you a ton to think about. And I am really looking forward to discussing it with you guys in more detail, as usual.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot to discuss.
All right, well, let's dive into our scene selection for the day, which we're going to call Asteroid Day Award Ceremony. And in true Wes Anderson fashion, there is so much detail in this film. So first, let's recap and set the scene. Connor, do you want to kick us off?
Would love to. So this scene is about a third of the way into the film and lasts about 3 minutes. It's a pretty quick sequence, but it was one of our favorites and definitely stuck out to us as a signature Andersonian moment in the film. It centers around the opening awards ceremony of the Junior Stargazer Convention, which is the reason our entire cast is gathered in Asteroid City, a fictional desert town built on the site of a meteorite crater. The sequence is split into two halves. The first is a speech made by General Griff Gibson, played by Jeffrey Wright, addressing the attendees and 5 young award recipients. And the second part is a series of vignettes after the speech where each of the young stargazers show off both their groundbreaking inventions and distinct personas while receiving unique awards for their scientific achievements.
Nice. Well, thank you for the refresher. Always helpful. So let's roll our sleeves up and get into it.
I think we should start with Jeffrey Wright's speech to begin with.
Yeah, it follows a very theatrical structured format where it's broken into 3 chapters of his life, which echoes the 3 acts of the film itself. So why do you guys think he somewhat self-consciously decides to tell his entire life story like this? What does it tell us about his character? It's an interesting choice, and the crowd clearly doesn't know what to do with it.
Right. And us as the audience too, maybe a little bit.
Yeah.
I think it's actually a really fascinating speech the more I hear it. And
Yeah.
that's just on top of how Jeffrey Wright expertly performs it. This is an era coming down from the devastation of World War II and the subsequent Korean War. And I think many individuals are dealing with things like PTSD and general anxiety brewing from the Cold War kind of happening in the background at this time for years and years. And his speech is almost like a therapy session in a way, while also imparting wisdom to these young people. So he goes from his own childhood, where we get these flashes of his nostalgia for a simpler time. And then he mentions his father coming home in a pine box with a flag on top, as he says, from World War I, the war to end all wars. And then he mentions his own experience in World War II, then kind of shifts his third chapter to the young scientists making a difference. So I think the speech kind of reflects that generational theme and how these young people, this young generation, will have their own challenges to surmount. And maybe through science and discovery, hence his little bit at the end, you picked the wrong time to get born.
Yeah.
Rather than war. This is the battle they're facing and moving forward with.
One thing I would ask you guys, I really love the choice that Jeffrey Wright made to strike this pose when he starts chapter 1. He's facing the camera perfectly, and then he kind of like turns sideways and like has more expressive hands. Did you guys think that this was the actor in the play making the choice to kind of spruce this up after getting this dry and factual introduction?
Yes.
In an attempt to kind of color it up? Or do you think that was just all kind of encompassed in the script that was written for the play?
It's a good point, because I feel like scenes like this and that choice reminds us that this is a play. So the way that it's very structured with like his movements and the way that he kind of like moves positions each time he's telling a chapter, there's like a new microphone that gets raised up and he goes and stands in front of it. Then he like steps to the side and there's a lot of like stage blocking that's happening during this section.
I think it actually works really well for Wes Anderson's script writing, because sometimes because of the stilted delivery, it feels very expository. And so in this sense, with him just dumping out his entire life story before awarding these kids with these medals, it actually makes sense that it's a play.
Yeah. And just from the perspective of the person that Jeffrey Wright is playing as a 5-star, was it a 5-star general?
5-star general, yeah.
He's meant to be this kind of buttoned up, military official. And I sort of saw it as like, this is his shot to kind of tell his story. Like I was saying before, like his therapy session to a crowd. And so striking that pose and kind of the drama of moving from microphone to microphone, I think was his kind of way of polishing the speech and making it thrilling amongst an otherwise very official sounding itinerary.
Which makes it even more tragic and funny that every single time we get a cut to the audience, they have like a completely neutral face and are not reacting to his words whatsoever. It's kind of tragic just because he's really pouring himself out there and he gets a very weak applause at the end of it all.
Well, I love the decision. It's almost like he was expecting it and he has decided to print a commemorative version of the speech to like give
Oh
to
yeah.
everybody that they didn't ask for. But there are some really great lines in this speech that I know we kind of all had some favorites. But I particularly loved the line, "Next, I went to officer school and 20 years passed at the speed of a dream. A wife, a son, a daughter, a poodle." There's like so much detail packed into such a short sentence.
hmm Speed of a dream. That's such
Oh,
a
Speed of a
great little
dream. Yeah,
phrase. Yeah, I
very
love
it
that.
is.
evocative line. Yeah.
Speaking of evocative lines, there's so many here, but one that really stuck out to me was that arms and legs were blown off like popcorn, which is so disturbing
It's so
and
dark.
completely inappropriate for like the dozens of children that are in the audience.
Oh yeah, that's a great point. Oh man, but what did you guys make of the line? "I walk to school 18 miles each morning." I mean, that can't possibly be true. I actually looked it up, and it would take roughly 6 hours to walk 18 miles, and maybe even more for a child.
Well, you're
There's just
also
no
forgetting
way.
that he also mentioned that he milked the cows and did a bunch of work on the farm in the morning too. So add that to the amount of hours.
Yeah. I personally took it as one of those hyperbolic statements that, maybe a person who's up there in age would make, like, I
Yeah,
walked to the school in the snow uphill both ways. It's just kind
yeah,
of
right,
something
right.
that, like, your grandparent would kind of spin a yarn and say, like, it was really hard for me.
hmm
It was
hmm
way harder for
hmm
me than it is for you.
The last thing I wanted to mention here is just the name General Griff Gibson. Sounds like it could be a character from Small Soldiers. I love this name.
Oh yeah, I completely agree. Right
Yeah,
next to
it
Chip Hazard and Butch Meat
Oh
Hook
yeah, I
and
could see the action figure.
Brick Bazooka,
yeah, it's a good solid alliteration name, General Griff
Yep.
Gibson.
Nick
Yeah,
Nitro.
yeah.
So another thing that gets revealed during this scene is the asteroid itself. So a great prop moment in a movie
Mm.
called Asteroid City, all
Mhm.
caps. We finally see the asteroid itself in all its glory, the Arid Plains meteorite, and it is comically small, maybe about the size of a bowling ball.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy because the crater that they're all sitting in for the
It's
scene
massive. Yeah.
implies that it is huge, and it would imply that the meteor is much bigger than it actually is. And I love the little cage that's surrounding it. Like,
Yes,
Yes.
nobody
yeah.
touched this historic
Right.
object, but it can clearly be just kind of lifted away.
Yeah, and I also love that the cage is just leaves it exposed to the elements. Shouldn't it be like kept safely in a glass case or something that would be at
Yeah.
least a little protective?
Yeah,
Definitely.
and it's just like on the ground, just
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
somebody put a cage over the top of it. It's really funny. And in true Wes Anderson fashion, of course, it's accompanied by a small placard that reads Meteoric space ore, long thought to be a lunar splinter segmented from the lesser moon of hypothetical planet Magnavox 27, considered a rogue pygmy cometet.
I just love
So
how
specific.
specific that is. It's oh my god. And I'm excited to ask Erica a little bit about the
Uh-huh.
signage and the typography here. That'll
Oh
be
yeah.
cool.
Mhm.
But yeah, the Cometet is par for the course in terms of comedy props in Wes Anderson films. I
Mhm.
think he and his
Yeah.
team are so good about using that specificity and comedy in props to bring these movies to life. And my mind immediately goes to Grand Budapest and hiding all of these tools to break out of prison in the pink Mendel's boxes
Oh
and all
yeah.
the
Uh-huh.
patisserie. And
Mhm.
it's just so beautiful that no one wants to cut into it and discover the tools. He's just so good
Right.
about those comedy props.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's a good little magic moment.
Yeah.
So all the awards have this unique form that kind of fits each junior stargazer's personality. There's a ribbon, a badge, a sash, a crown, and a medal. And they all follow a tight primary color palette of red, yellow, blue, white, and black.
Yeah, it'll be great to hear a bit more from Erica about the award design. I'm really curious like how they landed on that design because it's just so perfect. You could really picture these being awards that were given out in
Hmm.
1955 at a convention like this.
Yeah, and again with that specificity, the way that they're named and the actual design, it's just so particular to this setting. And I just can't think of another filmmaker that would go into that level of like
Uh-huh.
detail
Hmm.
in his script and employ people who clearly have the same care for that level of detail. It's amazing.
I thought it might be fun to just briefly talk about the different
Yeah.
inventions and if you guys had any kind of comments about them, but we can start in chronological order with the jetpack or the aeronautical induction device. So to me, this one looks comically unsafe. The kid is just flying, and and his father is literally holding him with a rope tied around his ankle.
Yeah, that's such a great
So
catch.
it was a
Good
great, great
detail.
image. Yeah,
Like he'd just
Yeah.
fly away if it weren't for that rope.
exactly.
And it's nice to see that at the end of the film come back into play and them
Mm,
actually
Uh-huh.
like
mhm.
use it as the sort of catalyst for the climax as everybody's freaking out when they're quarantined again.
Mhm.
Yeah, right. Like if you're going to introduce a jetpack, you got to
Yeah.
put
Yeah.
that
Use
thing
it
to
somewhere.
use.
Chekhov's aeronautical induction device.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then we have the particle disintegration.
So what really got me about this one was that they give the most powerful gun to like the one daredevil character with seemingly nothing to lose.
Yeah.
It's a great visual. It invokes skeet shooting where he has somebody
Yeah.
pull like a dish or maybe even a clay pigeon of some sort, and obviously he shoots it into bits.
And then the third is botanical acceleration.
So for this one, I really liked the use of stop motion animation here for the growth of the flower. It just feels a lot more distinct than if it was entirely CGI. But I did leave wondering how she knew the vegetables became toxic. It just kind of invites this story in your head of like how
Yeah.
she
Yeah.
discovered that.
It's definitely cool looking. And just shout out to the entire production department because they continue to outdo themselves on every Wes Anderson feature. It's
Mhm.
really impressive with how deep they commit to the world building of the films. I think going so far as building like actual functional versions of the pinball machine in the French Dispatch. And it had me wondering if they made the vending machines behind the motel fully functional, the ones that are lined up
Mm.
back there.
Mhm.
I'd love to have that martini vending machine we see the adults using in the
Yes.
film.
Yeah, what were some of those machines? There was the martini vending machine.
Cigarettes, I think. Then there was
There was
like the
real
land
estate.
vending machine.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. So cool.
So we have 2 awards left. The next one is the new element, which would be shortly added to the periodic table of elements.
Granted, I know very close to nothing about chemistry. In fact, that was my worst, maybe my worst subject in school.
Agreed.
I'm
Yeah,
ashamed to
for me
say,
too.
but yeah, and I would imagine it is really, really difficult to not only like discover or synthesize a new element, but to actually get it on the periodic table. I just thought this was such a nice, funny, like understated touch compared to the death ray. This is
Right,
Yeah,
just
right.
right.
somebody who
Right.
like I discovered a new element and it's on the
Yeah,
It's
periodic
like
table next
it's like
year.
an amazing discovery. Yeah.
right, right.
Yeah.
Our last invention is the astronomical imaging, which was invented by Woodrow himself.
I found it really funny that there's just like a random kid that's touching the scientific breakthrough of this device while Woodrow is demonstrating its use. Like what is that kid there for?
I have no idea.
But he's
I was
always
wondering
there
the
every
same
time
thing.
they
Yeah.
like there's always two people operating the machine.
Is it like another one of the stargazers or is it like a random kid?
I thought it was just like a kid from the class.
Yeah, yeah, I think it was just a kid from the class.
Maybe they're like, cuz that class of students is clearly there to they're all very interested as a class
Yeah.
experiencing these astrological studies and they're there on like a field trip, right? So maybe
Hmm.
because it's not a death ray, they're just allowing like one of the students to help and feel like included.
Yeah, I like
Yeah,
that.
definitely one of the least harmful inventions. Maybe the
Exactly.
safest. Yeah.
Except according to Liev Schreiber's character, I think he says something like, "Is he trying to start World War III?"
Oh,
From
yeah.
fr-
That's right.
from like
I
the
forgot about
American
that.
flag that he's putting on the moon.
Mhm.
Is that what
Right.
he says? I think something like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Going back to what you were saying, Connor, the attention to detail here, especially when showing off all of these inventions and props, it's classic Anderson, and I think we all love to see how much of this was achieved through practical effects.
Yeah.
Uh, and throughout the film too, using miniatures for the train and rock formations in the backdrop and hand painting all the signs and
Yeah, like even super small details like hand kerning, the placement of the letters in the motel signs, the writing on the
Hmm.
chalkboard, all the incredible signage. It's all super period accurate and just does a great job of transporting you to that time and place. And another great piece of production in this scene is the big ceremonial banner that's over this whole event. It feels very government issued and official. It's a white banner with black text and some red, white, and blue graphics of stars and planets. Just the right balance of serious and playful, and again, something you could see actually being produced for an event like this in 1955.
yeah, and Connor, I think you scribbled down the text for the banner, which says Asteroid Day 1955, sponsored by the United States Military Science Research and Experimentation Division and the Larkings Foundation. And then in quotes, for a powerful America.
I love
Yeah,
that
I'm
little
just
touch.
a sucker for little quotes like that on signs.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, it goes back to the era we're in as a part of the film and kind of where we are as a country, like in war, in between wars. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
interesting.
and just another testament to like the amount of detail and research that goes into defining the look of this period is the actual font that we're seeing hand painted on the sign. I think here is a version of the standard alphabet for highway signs type family,
Oh,
which
wow.
was developed by the United
Hmm.
States Federal Highway Administration originally back in 1948. So that
Hmm.
definitely checks out with the time period. It's also known more modernly as Highway Gothic, and a modern version of this font is called Interstate, which was developed by famous typographer Tobias Frere Jones. But I love like the hand painted look of these letters. There's like a really nice design touch.
Wow. That's great detail, man. I would have never, that's incredible.
I love that you brought that up too because I feel like a lot of this stuff could just be taken for granted, but
Yeah,
Yeah.
when you actually look into the details, they're all so vital to transporting you to this area that you never question that it's authentic or not.
right. Yeah, it just feels right.
And even though it's not directly in this scene, it's sort of backdrop, and I think we should just mention the billboard in the town
Oh
that's
yeah.
featured really prominently throughout the
Mhm.
film. Since we're talking about signage, and the same billboard that's on in the poster art and kind
Yep.
of everywhere surrounding the marketing of the film.
Yeah. They figure really heavily into the look of the film and the color grading. So it'd be
Right.
interesting if Erica has any notes for us about that.
Yeah.
And I don't know if
Mhm.
you guys saw it, but Focus Features actually put up a replica of this billboard along the highway outside of Monument Valley, Utah.
Oh, cool.
And it's like,
Mhm.
no one's actually going to like see it, but it's just a really cool, fun stunt that, not many people would see in person, but it's more about the PR of the whole thing. So just a cool thing that they did.
So next I think we could talk a little bit about the cinematography. So cinematographer Robert Yauman developed a very distinct look for this film, even by Wes Anderson standards.
Right.
Everything has this very striking orange, blue, and white color palette that feels uniquely American. I don't know, maybe it was a nod to the red, white, and blue, but in the style of the American Southwest. What do you guys think?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I could definitely see it.
Yeah, that kind of bold cyan color
Hmm.
of I think a
Mhm.
lot of cyan in that sky. And then yeah, like you said, Mark, the all the red rock kind of being
Oh
more of an
yeah.
orange, but it does feel that desert aesthetic feels distinctly American West, which I don't think he's really tackled, definitely not to this degree before.
Yeah.
While we're talking about cinematography, I think it's also worth noting that I believe there were a couple 360 pans at the beginning of the movie. Do you guys remember those?
Oh yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's not the very opening of the film, which is the black and white Bryan Cranston introduction, but as we are introduced to the town of Asteroid City, you're going along like a dolly track, almost like you're on a train track,
Yeah.
honestly, and it keeps
Mhm.
kind of flipping around and exploring the visual language of the town. You're seeing all these various signs, and which I don't know about you guys, but in my screening, uh, especially the second time seeing it, people were kind of cracking up, especially at the freeway that kind of leads to nowhere.
Yeah, yeah, that's such a great
Uh-huh.
touch.
Yeah, it's just going back to that comedy props, comedy sets. He's just so great at that visual storytelling.
There are a lot of moments in the film where they like land on a prop as a visual gag, and I really love that. It's like nothing is said, there's no dialogue, it's just like a visual gag.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, and then Mark, connecting back to the opening ceremony scene, that 360 panning, I think we just should mention that I believe the rig that the key grip on on the film and on the scene, of course, had to develop in order to get that Jeffrey Wright kind of leaping forward from one
Oh yeah.
microphone to the next. They had to develop this specialty dolly that could move basically in every which direction, and it was even
Mm.
multi-layered, like a
Mm.
multi-layered dolly that could accomplish particular geometry and movement to nail that aesthetic that Anderson always goes for. So like
Yeah.
huge shout out to the grip department on these films.
Mhm.
It must be grueling.
Yeah. And going back to the scene that we're talking about today, I actually think it features one of Wes Anderson's, quote, trademarks, end quote, which is this tilt. When he mentions the solar flare, we get a quick tilt up into the sky and then back down to Jeffrey Wright's character as he's delivering the speech. And so,
Mhm.
once again, a lot of different movements rather than just simply cutting to a different angle. He incorporates a lot of movement into his actual shots.
Definitely. There's so much momentum and energy behind
Mhm.
the camera as a language. And I know I already used this cliche once today, but the camera being its own character as
Yeah.
Mhm.
this thing that is directing us to the action and to what the dialogue is speaking to. It is such a unique, as I think you guys said before, Andersonian
Yeah.
characteristic and trait of his films.
Mhm.
And one last comment I wanted to make on the visual part of the film was how purposefully color seemed to be used. I know we touched on it a bit, but did you guys notice pretty much everything in the film was either red, yellow, blue, or white?
Oh, interesting.
Hmm.
Anytime something was green or purple, it felt like it signified that it was something alien, like either the alien's ship itself, like this very bright, vivid green, or the like
Mhm.
weird laser technology that Clifford developed, which is like this super saturated purple. They all feel like they stand out against this super consistent look and feel of red, white, and blue, the color grading of the rest of the film.
That's a great
Definitely.
pickup. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So moving into sound design, score, while we may have gotten some sparse score before this scene in the film, I'm not quite sure, but it is very prominently featured in
Hmm.
this scene for the first time. And that is Alexandre Desplat. And that is this minimal, sort of mysterious musical cue that consists of these two notes played back and forth continually. Desplat is such a wonderful, versatile composer on everything he does, not just Wes Anderson projects, but he has done every Anderson film since Fantastic Mr. Fox.
Oh,
He
wow.
started with Fantastic Mr. Fox. Before then, it was Mark Mothersbaugh,
Hmm.
and supposedly Mothersbaugh and Anderson were going to reunite for some sort of World War II musical project.
Weird.
And I'm not sure what the status is on that film because I think it was last reported on years ago, unless I'm like totally missing something. But yeah, I don't know where their collaboration stands, and I think they're still familiar and friendly.
Hmm.
And I'm not really sure why he switched to Desplat, but that has been a really fruitful,
Yeah.
interesting collaboration for
Mhm.
like years and years now.
Earlier on during his introduction, there's almost an absence of music to the point where I think there's a cutaway to Matt Dillon's character and he's holding up fireworks and you can actually hear a fly buzzing.
Yeah.
then you get this alternating between these two notes on a glockenspiel, which gives it this childlike, whimsical quality to it.
Hmm.
And I don't know if this was just trying to evoke this sense of nostalgia when Jeffrey Wright's character is harkening back to him being a child and, the adventures he went through going to school every day, or if it was just to cue the audience in on him trying to connect with the younger kids in the audience.
Yeah, yeah. You could almost think about it as like the young stargazer's theme in a
Yeah.
way, because it almost sounds like space exploration, like the wonder
Yeah.
of space.
I could see that.
It's really effective in that way.
So moving on to more of a thematic element, something that I noticed was the significance of the number 3 in this film. And I might be reading into it way too much, but I think it all stems from the astronomical ellipses, which we see the characters view and then leads to the alien landing. So it's that 3-dot graphic that figures pretty prominently during the alien landing, and then later when we see that it's like actually burned into Dr. Hickenlooper's eye through that really funny X-ray moment they show on screen. But I just noticed these 3 dots show up in various ways throughout the film, and I'll list a couple. First and foremost, there's like the 3 acts of the film itself. There are 3 chapters of Jeffrey Wright's speech in this scene in particular, and the way that he moves into 3 different physical positions for each chapter. There are the 3 Tupperware containers of Jason Schwartzman's wife's ashes, which is really sad, but again, kind of like weirdly funny detail that Wes Anderson included. We have the 3 daughters, and we have the 3 generations of Tom Hanks, Jason Schwartzman, and Woodrow that we see, throughout the film. And then there's some really small things, like there's this question that Steve Carell's character asks, like, what kind of juice do you want, apple, orange, or tomato? So it's these 3 types of juices that he offers the guests, and they're fruits with a shape that all signify maybe like the 3 circular dots of the ellipses. And also the colors here indicate a really warm color palette, like red, orange, red, which plays into the color palette of the film. And then one kind of random thing that happens is these like cops and robbers that drive up and down the main strip and shoot at each other. And that happens 3 times throughout the film. And then the last thing, this is probably like really a big reach, but Jason Schwartzman's order at the diner is 5 flapjacks and 2 coffees. So 5 minus 2 is 3. And I'm not like grasping at straws here, trying to sell this thing. But thematically, I was just thinking about how in ellipses, this 3-dot graphic that we're seeing is a way to signify how life goes on, which is kind of the message of the film. Like, even though something big might happen in your life, like your wife or your mom really sadly passing away, you find a way to continue on despite not having the answers that you're looking for.
Yeah,
that's a
beautiful.
fascinating point. Great pickup on that, Connor.
Yeah. And Connor, that connects closely to one quick observation that with the star ellipses lining up this 3 number and the 3 young girls, Jason Schwartzman's daughters, being named after constellations.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I believe.
Right.
And this whole thing about like their mother being in the stars. And and speaking of the 3 daughters reminded me of Shakespeare, Macbeth, like the 3 witches, because they kind of had this witchy theme to them.
Yeah, they were great. They were really fun.
Yeah. And there are 4 kids in the movie, and I kind of maybe imagine Woodrow being that 4th dot, that green dot being the brainiac, the one who's kind of out there and fascinated with astrology.
Yeah.
So it's interesting making all these connections, however tenuous they are and far-fetched. It's great that the film can make you think about this. And then I think we've talked a little bit about how the film as a whole and the scene is kind of this quarantined way station for these characters explored in this abstract way.
Oh, yeah.
And it really hits hard post-COVID. And it's clearly like a COVID-themed movie in a way, not only in its execution and how it was actually made, but in the content itself. We see these characters experience getting quarantined, their uncertainty around the protocol for that
Yeah.
quarantine. So the movie was shot outside of Chinchon, Spain, which probably at the time we could guess maybe its filming restrictions related to COVID were not as strict as something like the actual American Southwest where the movie takes place. And I have to imagine the timing and nature of the pandemic was a big reason why Wes Anderson could pull this off and stack the cast like this.
Oh yeah.
No one at the time had anything lined up.
Hmm.
Everything was on pause, and that's why you're seeing so many A-list names, like more than ever before, potentially.
Yeah, I think one thing I just can't help but smile about is the ever-growing ensemble of A-list actors that he features in his films.
Yeah.
I can't help but think that this prompts a unique set of challenges, trying to adequately feature them in a way that doesn't seem showboaty, but at the same time makes it worthwhile. It's obviously a good problem to have, but I give him credit for doing it in a deft manner for a majority of his filmmaking, and Asteroid City is no exception, where he features all these really incredible actors in these great roles without it seeming to be shoehorned in.
Yeah, and we also know Bill Murray was supposed to play Steve Carell's role, but had to drop out due to contracting COVID-19 shortly before shooting.
I would be remiss not to mention Tom Hanks's presence in this
Oh,
as
yeah.
the resident Hanksophile. So, what did
Here
you
we
guys think
go.
of his performance?
I thought it was one of his best roles in years, actually. I really thought he sold it, and he played the role super well. I mean, I always like seeing Tom Hanks not just be like the super lovable nice guy, but he was like a
Yeah,
very human
exactly.
character here.
One of the most impactful moments of the film is after they've decided to leave his daughter in the Tupperware in the ground. He kind of has this like 1 second breakdown next to Jason Schwartzman, and it's just a split second, but he lets down that facade that he's
Yeah.
had the whole movie, and it's like a really strong moment. I'm glad they picked him for that.
Yeah, good job, Tom.
Yeah, yeah. So, as we take a step back from the specific scene and maybe some of the players in the movie, I wanted to ask the question, what did you guys make of the framing device of this story? The
Mm.
fact that it's basically like a film made showing the behind the scenes televising of a play. So it's almost like 3 layers deep.
Yeah, all the layers. It's like in a lot of other Anderson films, that layering effect allows him to be a bit more absurdist in his approach, because it can always harken back to this is a fake narrative within a fake narrative within a narrative, and
Mhm.
it allows for that and cuts to the core of the movie. But I think it also doubles as sort of this homage to the old days of theater and film acting. I think Willem Dafoe, who we haven't mentioned yet,
Yeah.
I think he's trying to play an equivalent to a Lee Strasberg. Adrian Brody is like an Elian Kazan. Edward Norton is sort of Tennessee Williams. It just seems to be like a love letter to that era, in addition to the play we're seeing.
Yeah, I didn't even really think about it like that, but that just adds so much and makes a lot of sense. I think it also interesting just to see Wes Anderson continue to play with like aspect ratio too, the way that we were, starting in like 4:3 and then going to like cinematic widescreen.
Yes, yeah. This is also a chance for Wes Anderson to take an ambitious swing with playing with narrative in some sorts that I don't think
Yeah.
I've seen him do before.
Yeah, maybe the closest was how he started to experiment with French Dispatch a bit, but I really like the way that he's doing it here. It's adds a
Mhm.
lot to the film and just really he loves making characters. So it's like there's so many rich characters on
Right.
top of characters here, and it goes very deep. There's definitely a lot to dig into and, like you said, think about. All right, so maybe one thing to end on that could be kind of fun. What if we run through our top 3
Ooh.
Wes Anderson movies? If you guys have that ready to go, I can start with mine. So my favorite Wes Anderson, number 1, The Royal Tenenbaums. I really love this movie. I think it was my first Wes Anderson I saw, and it's just always in that top spot for me. I would say really closely followed by Rushmore at number 2, And then number 3, the Grand Budapest Hotel. Those are my 3.
Those are great. Yeah. I would actually say my number 1 would be Rushmore.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
My number 2 would be Moonrise Kingdom.
Okay.
And my number 3 would be Grand Budapest Hotel.
Nice. There we go.
I mentioned before, I think definitely my top Wes Anderson film is Grand Budapest Hotel.
Yeah.
It just holds a very special place in my heart, where I think you mentioned, Mark, much earlier, that all of these elements kind of came together in this perfect package of, like, it's very out there, but it's also grounded emotionally and still has a somewhat standard structure that you can follow and attach to. And yeah, not only is it my favorite Wes movie, it's probably in my top 10
Oh, wow.
ever.
Nice.
Wow.
And then, yeah, like you, Connor, Rushmore is my number 2. That was the one that kind of like started it all for me. And I think you may have even shared it with me first, and that's kind of what got me into Wes Anderson.
Oh, wow.
You did, yeah, you did for me too,
I'll
Connor.
take credit for that, happily.
Yeah.
I think it was like the Criterion Collection DVDs or something.
I was just going to say that you had that.
Yeah.
Nice.
And then number 3 for me, Fantastic Mr. Fox. A little bit
great
different
one.
from your guys' list, but that's kind of his foray into animated filmmaking. And I've seen that film so many times.
Oh, really?
And I love kind of the quirk behind it. And some of the vocal performances are like the best I've seen in an animated film. And the stop motion quality, I just am a big fan of stop motion in general. And I just remember so many lines from that movie that stick with me. I've probably seen it like a dozen times, just kind of playing in the background.
Nice.
I love the vibe of it. So
For a director who obsesses over details and makes sure that everything is perfect in frame, something like Fantastic Mr. Fox gives him complete control of that.
yes.
Nice. Good stuff.
Well, thank you guys for all of your thoughts on not only the scene, but the film as a whole. I think the awards ceremony scene is this great example of all these elements coming together, you know, being dialogue driven, being character based, and then having all these distinct props and set pieces and detail. It kind of encompasses Wes Anderson's films and Asteroid City as a whole into this one small package. So now that we've broken down the scene, we'd like to welcome on our guest, Erica Dorn, lead graphic designer on the film, for her pro take.
Amateur or professional?
Professional.
Hi, Erica. Thank you so much for joining us on Scenecraft to talk about Asteroid City.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
As this is the pro take section of the podcast, we'd love to do just a quick introduction on your creative role as the lead graphic designer on the film. Would you mind telling us a little bit about how you originally got into design and how you approach your role on a film?
Well, I got into design initially through illustration, but the first few years I was working as a designer, I had nothing to do with film or TV. I was working for a creative agency in London, and a lot of it was branding, a little bit of advertising, publishing. And I got into film sort of by chance because I was asked to come on as a sort of supporting graphic designer on Isle of Dogs, which, as you probably know, is set in Japan. So there's a lot of background graphics and signage, bits and pieces that needed to be linguistically accurate, but also culturally and historically accurate. So they wanted somebody on board who knew the design and the culture intimately. I was born in Japan, so I had lived there for 18 years before moving to London. So I had a little bit of a dual background.
Yeah, if I may say, the design elements in that film,
incredible.
I think one of my favorite designs, period, in like any film. I think it's
a big compliment.
Puppy snaps.
The puppy snaps.
Yeah, they're so good. And I mean, what an amazing opportunity. It's like they were so lucky to find you because the design that you did for that film, like Cody said, is so incredible. And you just raised the bar so much for that visual world that you guys built.
I was very lucky to be asked. It changed my entire sort of career arc from that point onwards. At the time, Annie Atkins, who's, very well known in the sort of design for film world, was working as the lead when we were prepping that film. So I learned so much from her.
Shifting gears back over to Asteroid City itself. So, as with any Wes Anderson film, there is so much thought and care and attention put into the accuracy of building these visual worlds. Can you tell us about your research process, for different time periods? And in this film, how much time did you spend delving deep into this historical atomic age of graphic design to get a feel for that time period?
There's a lot of pre-production that happens. We're very lucky to have a brilliant researcher on board called Emily, who's worked with us on quite a few films now. And her ability to dig up these archival images of, roadside diners in the 1950s or, whatever the brief might be. She'll sort of dig deep into different archives and pull out different photographers. And so by the time I start on the film, there's already quite a large library of images that she and Wes and Adam Stockhausen, the production designer, have all collected and sifted through. So it starts by sort of getting familiar with that. It's not just photography. There's a lot of old films that influence our film as well. So, I mentioned earlier before we started recording, mentioned Ace in the Hole. There's another one called Bad Day at Black Rock, which is a 1955 film by John Sturges. There's a lot of films that sort of, you might recognize tiny little bits and pieces. It might be just a wallpaper, or it might be a sign, the Ice Tires Service sign in front of the... those kinds of details often come from these movies and these photographs. And then what we do is we just sort of fill in the gaps if we need something really specific, like, the exact label of Campbell's soup that was around in 1955. It's a little bit different in 1940, and it's a little bit different in the 60s. So you kind of have to find the closest one as an example.
That's so interesting. So Emily, Wes, and Adam, they'll kind of sift through all the material of the age and then almost like pull together the references that they feel like achieves the look that they're going for, and then they point you in that direction, almost like give you that as the brief.
Yeah, and there's often a whole folder, for every set. So, that becomes our visual brief, and then we top it up with whatever specific item or research that we need.
So with Asteroid City, how has the role that you play as a designer changed over the course of the films? Are you now more helping oversee the team of designers, or are you all working together equally to build the look and feel of the film?
Well, on Isle of Dogs, I was more in a sort of supporting role in pre-production. So when I started on The French Dispatch, I had massive imposter syndrome because it was my first feature film, and it was a really big one. It had something like 250 sets or something, if you count all of the montages and the split screens and and there was signage absolutely everywhere and posters, and it was chaos. I needed so much help. I think at some point we had 5 designers, and not assistant designers, like proper experienced graphic designers who would have been lead, on other projects. They sort of all came in to help. But I think Asteroid City then in comparison felt much more scaled down. And there was still a lot to do, but it was just 2 of us and 2 assistants. And because it was just, it was one big set essentially, if you don't count the theater and the train and the extra little bits. But it felt like building one big set, and so there was a lot more focus. And obviously the action props added a lot on top of that. But, I'd found sort of a rhythm and a language that worked in working with Wes as well. And, part of it could be that he sort of trusted me a little bit more, or maybe I've just learned his visual language much more intimately, and so instinctively knowing what to present. So, generally fewer rejections and fewer versions of things.
Speaking of all those details as being one big set, can you go into a little bit more detail about the collaborative process between departments?
Yeah, it's a different relationship we have to each one. So art department stuff happens a lot earlier on because it's early on in the schedule when you're building the sets. So, you have these art directors making these plans and elevations, and they leave a little space for the graphic to go. And so you have a size, and it's quite straightforward. You're often given a size and a reference. So from there, with action props, you're kind of developing it along with the prop master. So they might be designing or sourcing. If you take the luggage, for example, they need to find the actual prop first,
right,
have it approved, or, modify it. But sometimes you need the graphic mock-up in order to understand how that's all going to work once it's modified. So, the size of the graphic might dictate, So it's quite an organic process. Wes is involved, completely throughout. Sometimes you get a little bit of friction when I have something approved by Wes and then show it to the prop master, and he's just like, how the hell am I going to make that? That's impossible. It's always a challenge when that happens, and Sandy is a very experienced veteran prop master, so he always finds a way. But yeah, I think there were a few head scratching moments, especially in the beginning. The collapsing star ribbon of success is the one I'm thinking of when I say that, because I had a sketch approved, but it had these sort of multicolored ribbons all around the outside, and apparently that was really difficult to do. And he had various different ribbon makers, and he tried lots of different things. In the end, it looks fantastic, but slightly different to the original sketch.
That's so funny. That was going to be our next question, just about that really fun award sequence. So, I mean, I'm sure it was quite the process. I've heard that you mentioned just in past interviews, you do go through a lot of revisions to get to that final look and feel of, whether it's a prop or piece of signage, something for the film. How many rounds of exploration or revision did you go through for that sequence, for the awards that you built, the collapsing star ribbon or the black hole badge of triumph, that whole set?
Based on the version number, it's probably around 10 or 15.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But the first 5 might be just completely different routes.
Right.
So it might present 4 or 5 completely different things. So then you're already at version 5.
Yeah.
Then there's, color changes and slight tweaks to the shape and the lettering to make it more legible. And by the time it's approved, it's around 10 or 15 versions. Some things can go into the sort of 20s. But I think that's a bit more rare now. And then obviously, once it goes into production, because it's not finished when the sketch is approved, you still have to make the thing. So then it either goes to the prop master, or if it's a paper-based prop, like a telegram or something, then it's up to us to then find the right paper, getting the print quality just right, so it's, it's nice and sharp. And that can add on then a few more rounds of back and forth.
That's incredible. Wow. Mr. Anderson is very detail-oriented. I think that's putting it mildly.
No, really?
Yeah, seriously?
Never heard that before.
No. And so all of these awards, the Black Hole Badge of Triumph, the Red Giant, the White Dwarf, that is all based in the script, I'm guessing.
Mm-hmm. Well, the name of the award is in the script, but there's no description, apart from the fact that it's a sash, or it's a badge, or it's a medal. So we sort of take that very loose brief, look at various different medals or different badges or different sashes. We looked at beauty pageant things from the 50s as well for that. And for the medal, we looked at various, military awards and sort of mix them together and do a sort of mashup of our 2 or 3 favorite references and see what comes out.
So cool.
That scene is so fast.
Yes.
It's like each invention and the medal, and then the next one. It's super, super fast. I think if there's anyone in London at the moment, the exhibition for Asteroid City has all of these things displayed. And, it opened on Friday, so I was there. But it's so nice that people can actually stop and look at them close up.
Yeah.
It's nice to be able to see that because, otherwise it's just so fleeting in the film So if anyone's around, I strongly encourage it.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, they have sort of a display per character. So,
Oh, cool.
Each one has like the medal and the notebook and the costume and the little invention.
Oh, so cool.
And then moving into the actual signage throughout the film, we get the banner in the scene itself, which is featured a couple times. And we also get the famous billboard. Can you tell us a little bit about the typography and the look and style of the billboards and signage?
Yeah, the signage was inspired by, lots of historical images. The luncheonette in particular. There was this one image by Dorothea Lange of this sort of roadside cafe, and it just says chili beans, hot dogs, hamburgers written really big just on the side of the building with the prices. And I think it's like steak lunches or something on the front. And there are so many references like this where they're just plastered with text because obviously they're right on the highway, so cars just go by and it has to communicate in 2 seconds what they're offering. So, that was kind of the inspiration behind that. And then the motel was a mix of lots of different references, some postcards. And then the billboards were commissioned by an artist, a painter called David Mickle. He worked directly with Wes, and then I sort of assisted with the typography. But the typography is also inspired by something that he had done previously, so I don't take too much credit for that. But that was all sort of painted there in the States, and then we printed like a very light version of his painting at the actual size, which was something, it was huge. It was like 8 meters or something. I don't know what that's in feet. But then we had scenic painters go over it. So it does have that painted quality, we didn't want to flatten the painterly aspect of it.
Yeah, that really comes through.
Yeah, and the color, the grading of the film is very striking. And it sort of does remind me of some of the old postcards that we were referencing.
Yeah, beautiful.
One other thing we were wondering about, and again, I can only imagine how many fun projects within projects there are with a film like this, but Jason Schwartzman's character has a camera that is featured pretty heavily throughout the film, and it's the Mueller-Schmid Swiss Mountain camera. So was that you that developed the branding for that?
I think Wes came up with the name.
Okay.
And I did do a little logo for it.
Amazing.
And
yeah, I loved it so much. It's a great touch.
There's loads of detail on that one. So sort of inspired by Swiss cameras and watches and the way that's engraved. But, then Sandy the prop master had to go and actually have it made and engraved, which was a whole project, I think.
Yeah, that the camera, as well as all of these props and
I know
and details are you could do an hour-long discussion just based on that. But are there any specific props or visuals that you're particularly fond of from this film that the audience might not have picked up on with that pace?
Yes, I'm really fond of the inventory that the alien leaves on the meteorite. I don't think you can see it very well, and I think you can see it very briefly because it's engraved.
Yeah.
And it's quite dark. But it's all just sort of symbols. And it's not in English, so you obviously can't read it. But there was a whole kind of logic that was developed for that. I don't know if you know, but in Japanese, the more complex characters are made up of sort of simpler characters, and the simpler characters have basic meanings. So when you combine the character for tree twice, then you get the character for forest. And if you have them 3 times in one character, it's the character for woods. But you can also do this for slightly more complex ideas. That's how those symbols came about.
Oh, amazing.
In order to express Earth, there's a sort of round symbol with a line through it, which means planet. And then there's a squiggly symbol that means water.
Cool.
So that means Earth, and then, so on and so forth. So it says something like, be careful, inhabitants of Earth, because your future is precarious.
Wow, that's an awesome detail. I mean, that must have been so fun to design that language. That's got to be a first.
Yeah. And because the meaning is not scripted, I knew that it wasn't ever going to be, translated or explained in any way. So it was a little bit like a secret message.
It's amazing. And that inscription, that's on the bottom of the meteorite itself, right?
Yeah, it's underneath when he drops it back down to Earth after he borrows it or steals it.
I do recall that being really cool.
That's a great moment.
There's a lot of stuff that will just get forgotten about or not seen, which is why it's nice to do these things so I can sort of give them a little mention.
Yeah.
And the things you don't talk about often just get missed out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's almost like a keepsake in the film itself that not many people would even know the story behind. So yeah, thank you for telling us about that.
Thank you for noticing.
No, of course. And it's been so amazing to talk with you. We really appreciate you joining us to discuss Asteroid City. We loved it. And a huge congratulations to you and your whole team.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. It was lovely meeting you.
Last train to San Fernando.
Thanks again to Erica Dorn for that amazing discussion. And thank you to our listeners and fellow movie enthusiasts for reliving this scene with us. Do you have a favorite scene from Asteroid City? You can email us at contact@scenecraftpodcast.com with any of your thoughts or comments, or follow us on Instagram, Twitter, or TikTok @ScenecraftPodcast for the latest updates on the show. You can also support us by leaving a review or star rating on your platform of choice. And a very special thanks to Jordan Summerlad, as always, for our theme music. This has been Scenecraft, where we break down the craft behind our favorite scenes. See you all next time.